TDA Catalyst Fellow at LCO, and today I'm going to talk to you about my perspective as an observer using the AEON network that Tim just talked to you about. So we know that we're going to be getting a lot of new discoveries across the board with Rubin, and the way that we kind of see this follow-up going is we have these new targets. We want to analyze the available data that we have, decide on a prioritize the targets, observe them, reduce the data, and then have this circle. However, with a large influx of this data, we need to have more rapid and flexible access to telescopes. And I think that this needs to be as automated as possible. I agree with Matthew Graham eventually, like with humans minimally to do this. And I would love to have some sort of queued observing that can balance consistent monitoring, because there are some people like me that want to keep track of some of these objects throughout, for me, small bodies, keep track throughout their orbits, but also want to be able to rapidly follow up really interesting targets. And one of the solutions to that is AEON, which Tim just talked about, so I'm not going to, I'm going to try to give more of my perspective on it, but yeah, so it's a collaboration between NORLab and LCO to develop and promote a network of programmatically accessible and dynamically scheduled telescopes. And so again, another visual that's similar to what we saw, but eventually have these surveys, have the alert streams go into brokers, which you can then filter through your own TOM, which can then go eventually into this programmable network of facilities. And then hopefully with your pipelines to have some like real-time reduction. And this is where AEON falls in that scheme, is with the observatory, the follow-up facilities. And so some of the main original goals of AEON is to develop these interfaces with the APIs to connect facilities to the network, and then also interfaces to submit different observation requests. So starting with SOAR as the main Pathfinder facility, to execute AEON queues on specific nights throughout the semester. Again, like Tim said, to encourage data pipelining and archiving efforts from different facilities. And then after SOAR, to incorporate Gemini and Blanco, and then also be ready to incorporate other facilities like through Rubin in-kind. And so you might be asking, why am I here and not Rachel, who knows a lot more about AEON than me? But I have been an observer using AEON mode since before I started at LCO when I was still a PhD student. So I've been using SOAR for the last 3 years in AEON mode for my own personal science. So today I wanted to kind of walk you through what that looks like for me as an observer, just to maybe inspire you to think about how you might do something similar. So just to give you a little context on what I use this for, so I'm studying long period comets, especially distant long period comets where you need a larger telescope to observe them. And essentially we want to track their brightness behavior of these distant comets as they come in towards the sun from the Oort cloud, to hopefully make better predictions for future discoveries, and also to assess if brightness behavior can be used to discern if an comet from the Oort cloud is dynamically new or returning. That's like the 1 second version of a very large project. And how we do this is that we have consistent monitoring of this brightness behavior. So we have any inbound comet that is beyond 10 AU from the sun, add it to our list and observe them about monthly when they're observable for over a time scale of several years. And so for this particular project, I've been doing its optical images photometry. So on AEON on SOAR, specifically there are some operational features for SOAR. So there's multiple instruments. You have long slit spectroscopy with Goodman and TspEC, and you also have imaging with your standard SDSS GRIZ filters, but they also have implemented narrowband comet filters recently in AEON mode, including SOFAR CN and CO+. At the beginning of the semester, the users get an email saying this is how many nights based on how many proposals were accepted. And then this is the schedule for which nights are going to be AEON nights. And usually more are added throughout the semester, which is also nice too. So they use dynamic queue from an LCO robotic scheduling software they're able to use non-sidereal tracking, and they will automatically download ephemeris for moving objects from JPL horizons. For now, it's manual guide star and target acquisition, and the queue is run by telescope operators. So this is an example where it is not a robotic telescope operations, but you have it as streamlined as possible with only one person actually doing the operations, and it's a TO, not a science staff member. At the end of the night, you get night logs that are automatically generated and emailed to users, which is very helpful. So for the proposal process for SOAR is, in my case, I proposed for open access time through NORLab, and it's the same components as a classical proposal, just some like total all of your potential time that you would spend and use that into your proposal. You can also include TBD objects, which I do. So for example, here I show an example from one of my proposals. So I had 6 known objects, 2 unknown objects, and if I want to observe them about an hour each month, like around monthly when they're observable, I totaled about 23 hours. But this is all broken up by a lot. And you can see here, even my table has like new comet number 1, because we're hoping, again, to have the space for newly discovered comets. You can make a request through the LCO observation portal. And this is an example of what that looks like. So again, in my case, I can configure it to do GNR filters, how many second exposures, and the cadence of that. So I can go do each 3 times each. You can also set the limits for air mass, for moon separation, and things like that as well. You can also request using APIs and through the TOM toolkit to access SOAR on AEON. This is an example of that through the TOM toolkit, where you can see SOAR right here. Once your data is taken, you can access the raw data through the LCO archive. And this is also where I'll just mention some calibration questions, because I know that's probably a question. So you'll have dome plots taken in the afternoon before the AEON night, and then at the beginning of each night, you'll have a standard standard observed optical standard, and then you'll have telluric standard for every science target. And you have the pipelines for Goodman and for TSpec are available for download so that you can run the process, so you can reduce your own data offline. However, they also have the Goodman spectroscopic pipeline, which does real-time data reduction. So this is GSP Live. So this is using a web browser. So you can, if you're on top of your data, you can get it and access to it in real time. You don't have to wait till the next morning. And it will reduce images and spectra very nicely without you having to figure out which of the other data parts that you need. So this is a kind of summary of what that workflow looks like again, right? So you have your requests that go into the LCO scheduler. The scheduler then creates a dynamic schedule that goes into the observation schedule manager to observed by the SOAR TOs, and then it goes out through back to the archive or through the Goodman pipeline. So AEON on SOAR has become increasingly popular since it started in 2019. That's about 40 nights a semester. Right now it's with NORLab and Chilean time, but I think we might be adding Brazilian time this coming year. I think the resources I think it's very user-friendly as a user. I think the resources are very accessible, and there's also a lot of frequent communication with the AEON scientists, Cesar Briceño. And I will say, I can obviously only speak to my program, but my program has been extremely successful. Almost all of my targets are observed, which obviously is really great. So an example of from last semester, we used AEON was 44 nights. 37 of those were on the Goodman Red Cam and 7 were on Blue. And those included 15 regular programs and 10 TOO programs. And then 19 of the programs with Goodman and 6 with TSpec. So upcoming plans for AEON in 2024 I will speak to SOAR and Blanco. And then you'll hear next more about Gemini, but Now, SOAR is working on having a more modular architecture in its scheduling manager so that it's easier to add new telescopes and instruments. They're hoping to add automated guide star acquisition and automated on-slit target acquisitions this year. They also have funding to add ISPI imager to AEON, and also with LCO to develop a more tiered observation system based on project ranking, but also sky conditions. We also have, like Tim mentioned, the 4-meter Blanco telescope is hopefully coming online with AEON this year with new firm, hopefully like mid-2024, and then DECCAM potentially late 2024. And with Blanco, their NSF-funded project to implement real-time difference imaging and alert generation using the LSST pipeline. So, and if you're interested in AEON for your own facility, so it has an AEON-compatible facility has APIs for accepting observation requests, providing status, queue observing mode, preferably dynamically scheduled, a data archive for raw and reduced data, again with API access, and ideally with real-time data reduction. And Tim pointed out the Observing Facilities workshop that was last year, and I highly recommend you check out those resources because there's a lot of information on there if you're interested in that. Yeah, so a summary for me is I believe like queued observing is ideal for rapid but also flexible follow-up. And I think AEON that's been tested with SOAR has been successful and can be used at other facilities. And AEON also allows for scaling up to LSST with API and TOMS. However, individually, like as groups, we need to create better prioritization schemas need to be created so that we can figure out once we have a more fire hose of data, which ones do we actually want to follow up and when, and that also involves communication systems. And I put some links at the bottom. I'll share the slides if you want to know more. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you so much.